Today's story is about a man who shocked an entire village when he slapped his bride on their wedding day. A single act that uncovered secrets, misunderstanding, and a moral lesson stronger than the wedding vows themselves. What truly happened between Daniel and Lila? Stay with me till the end to find out. If you are just seeing this page for the first time, I would love you to subscribe to this channel. Like, share, and comment if you enjoy interesting African stories like this. Now, let's dive into it. Story begins. Long before the wedding, long before the slap that shook the hall and silenced the drums, there was a small restaurant at the corner of Maxwell Street. People often called it Mama Fola's Kitchen, not because the food was extraordinary, but because the place had a way of bringing strangers together in magical ways. That fateful afternoon, Daniel walked in with heavy steps. He had just finished a long, exhausting day at the construction company where he worked as a site supervisor. The sun had scorched the city, and dust from the site clung stubbornly to his boots. All he wanted was a quiet moment to eat and rest. Daniel was the kind of man people trusted immediately. Broad-shouldered, disciplined, calm, and soft-spoken. His friends used to joke that if Daniel said good morning, even at midnight, you would check your watch to confirm the time, because he always sounded sure of himself. On the other side of the restaurant sat Lila, glowing, cheerful, laughing with her friend Anita. She had just earned a promotion at the bank and decided to celebrate with a simple meal. Unlike Daniel's calm and collected nature, Lila was a spark of energy, expressive, warm, and full of life. She talked with her hands, her eyes, her whole body. Two opposite worlds, same room, same destiny. Daniel noticed her almost immediately. He wasn't the type to stare at strangers, but something about Lila pulled his attention like a magnet. Her smile was too bright, her laughter too sincere. In a world full of noise, she felt like music. Lila, on the other hand, wasn't paying attention at first, until she accidentally dropped her spoon. It rolled across the floor and stopped right at Daniel's feet. When she walked over to pick it up, their eyes met. A simple moment. But life often changes in simple moments. "Sorry," Lila said with a shy smile. "My hands have a mind of their own." Daniel chuckled softly. Maybe they want to meet new people. That broke the ice. Soon, she found herself asking if she could sit across from him. He nodded, and that was the beginning. They talked for hours. About work, dreams, childhood memories, embarrassing stories, fears they didn't even know they had. The restaurant closed early that day because the generator had developed a fault. But Daniel and Lila didn't even notice until Mama Fola herself tapped their shoulders and said, "Una no day go house? Abi una wan sleep here?" They laughed. The kind of laughter that makes strangers feel like they've known each other forever. When they stepped outside, the evening breeze felt different, softer, kinder, like the night itself was blessing their meeting. From that day forward, their lives intertwined like vines on an old tree. The months that followed, everyone who knew Daniel could tell something had changed. He smiled more often, he whistled at work, he even dressed better, and his coworkers teased him mercilessly. "Love day worry you, Oga," they would say. Lila brought something into his life that he didn't even know was missing: warmth. She visited him at work, cooked for him, cheered for him, prayed for him. Daniel had always believed in quiet affection, but Lila taught him loud love, love that spoke, laughed, danced, and sang. Their relationship grew quickly, but not blindly. They talked about everything: money, children, their fears, their dreams, their families. They argued too, like all couples, but their arguments always ended with apologies, laughter, or a long walk under the night sky. After 6 months, Daniel proposed with a simple ring but a full heart. Lila cried. Daniel almost cried too, though he later denied it. They were perfect, or at least they seemed perfect. Because unknown to both of them, tiny cracks had already started forming at the edges of their relationship. Little misunderstandings swept under the carpet, assumptions left unspoken, expectations never explained. Daniel was a man of order. Lila was a woman of spontaneity. Daniel believed love meant protection. Lila believed love meant freedom. Daniel kept his fears to himself. Lila expressed hers loudly. They loved deeply, but they loved differently, and neither of them realized how dangerous that difference would become. The wedding is set, families met. Dates were arranged. Colors were chosen. A sowebi was bought. The hall was booked. Everything looked perfect. Daniel felt ready. Lila felt blessed. Friends envied them. Neighbors admired them. Pastors prayed for them. But even with all the celebration, even with the dancing and joy, there were whispers, soft, subtle whispers, the kind that pass from one auntie to another. Hope these two understand each other. Love is not everything, oh. Marriage reveals what dating hides. They should communicate well. And maybe, just maybe, someone should have listened to those whispers. Because love, no matter how bright, always needs understanding to survive. But destiny had its own plans. The night before the wedding, Lila cried, not because she was afraid, but because she wanted everything to be perfect. She wanted to be the best wife, the best partner, the best friend. Daniel prayed, asking for wisdom, patience, and a strong heart. They loved each other, truly, but love alone was not enough to prevent what would happen the next day. A moment of misunderstanding, a burst of emotion, a mistake that would shock everyone, including Daniel himself. And this is where the journey truly begins. In the months leading to the wedding, Daniel and Lila experienced a kind of happiness that made people around them hopeful. Their smiles were contagious. Their laughter lit up rooms. Even strangers could sense their connection. But life has a quiet way of testing the things we hold close. It started small, so small that neither Daniel nor Lila considered it important. A few disagreements here and there, nothing dramatic, nothing unusual. But underneath the surface, these little disagreements carried seeds of bigger trouble. The first crack, communication. Daniel was a man of few words. Lila was a woman of many words. He believed that problems should be solved quietly, with logic. She believed problems should be discussed openly, even loudly if needed. This difference made small issues seem bigger than they were. One afternoon, Lila arrived at Daniel's apartment to surprise him with lunch. But Daniel wasn't home. He had gone to work early for an unplanned inspection. She called him. He didn't pick. She called again. He didn't pick. When Daniel finally returned the call during his break, Lila sounded upset. "You couldn't even tell me you left early?" she said. Daniel frowned. "Lila, I didn't know I needed to report every movement. It was work, nah." "That's not the point," she insisted. "Just give me a heads up next time." Daniel felt attacked. Lila felt ignored. Both of them were hurt, but neither explained why. Instead, they apologized quickly and moved on, or so they thought. The second crack, expectations. As the wedding drew closer, family expectations added pressure. Daniel's mother believed a wife must be calm, respectful, and soft-spoken. Lila's mother believed a wife must be expressive, bold, and confident. These opposing beliefs created invisible tension between the families, tension that slowly seeped into Daniel and Lila as well. One Sunday afternoon, after a family gathering, Daniel's mother pulled him aside and whispered, "Daniel, are you sure Lila is the right one? That girl talks too much. Women like that bring trouble." Daniel defended her, but his mother's words lingered like smoke in his mind. On the other end, Lila's aunt cornered her with, "My dear, make sure Daniel doesn't cage you after marriage, oh. Some quiet men like to control everything." Lila brushed it off, but the echo of those words stayed with her. Daniel wanted peace. Lila wanted freedom. They both wanted love, but the voices around them kept stirring doubts neither of them properly addressed. The third crack, jealousy. One evening, Daniel went to see Lila at her apartment. She was laughing with her coworker Tunde, who had dropped by to deliver some documents she forgot at work. Lila introduced them politely, but Daniel felt uncomfortable. Tunde was charming, friendly, too friendly. Even though nothing inappropriate happened, Daniel's mind began to race. "Who is he to you?" he asked gently after Tunde left. Lila chuckled. "Ah, Daniel, please. Don't start. He's just my colleague. He even has a fiancée." Daniel tried to swallow his uneasiness, but the seed had been planted. Meanwhile, Lila also had her own moment of jealousy. A week later, she saw a message on Daniel's phone from a lady in his office asking, "Hope you reached home safely? Don't forget the meeting tomorrow." It was innocent, but Lila felt a sting. "Why is she texting you at that time?" she asked. Daniel replied calmly, "It's work-related." But Lila's heart didn't settle. Still, they both smiled, hugged, and pretended nothing was wrong. The fourth crack, unfinished conversations. As the wedding approached, they became busier. Planning, shopping, meetings, decisions, stress. This made them sweep unresolved issues aside because there was no time. Daniel's silence grew thicker. Lila's emotions grew louder. But they never sat down to talk properly. Instead, they said things like, "We'll talk later. It's fine, don't worry. It's nothing." But love cannot grow where communication dies. The final crack before the wedding. The night before the wedding was supposed to be peaceful, but instead, a small misunderstanding became the spark that lit the fire. Lila had asked Daniel to come over so they could pray together before the big day. He arrived late, very late, because he was held up helping his cousin fix a faulty car on the road. By the time he got to Lila's house, she was frustrated, tired, and emotional. "Daniel, you always do this," she said, her voice trembling. "I feel like you don't take us seriously." Daniel sighed deeply. "Lila, I was helping family. I thought you would understand. But you should have told me. I've been waiting here thinking something happened." Daniel raised his voice slightly, something he rarely did. "Lila, must we argue over every small thing?" Lila flinched. Silence fell. Heavy. Uncomfortable. Daniel regretted raising his voice. Lila regretted overreacting. But both were too tired to talk more. They apologized out of exhaustion, not understanding. And that night they both went to bed carrying unspoken fears. Destiny moved quietly. While the moon shone softly over the city, neither Daniel nor Lila knew that tomorrow would become the most dramatic day of their lives. A day filled with joy, tension, shock, and a mistake that would echo far beyond the wedding hall. A mistake no one could ever forget. The morning of the wedding broke with golden light spilling over the roofs of Maxwell Street. Birds sang cheerfully, neighbors buzzed with excitement, and the entire community moved as if the day itself carried a special blessing. Daniel woke up before dawn. His best man, Kunli, found him sitting by the window, staring out quietly. "You no sleep?" Kunli asked, adjusting his tie. "I slept small," Daniel replied. "Just thinking." Kunli sat beside him. "Guy, no fear. Today goes sweet." Daniel smiled lightly, but the smile didn't reach his eyes. Something inside him felt unsettled. Maybe it was nerves. Maybe it was the weight of responsibility. Maybe it was all the unspoken doubts from the previous night. Still, he pushed the feeling down. Today was supposed to be a happy day. Across town, Lila sat before her mirror as Anita helped with her hair. The wedding gown glowed on her body like it was woven from moonlight itself. "You look like a queen," Anita said, fastening the veil. Lila forced a smile. "I hope today goes well." "It will." "Daniel loves you. Stop thinking too much." But Lila, just like Daniel, carried a quiet heaviness in her chest. A tiny whisper that something wasn't right. She shook it off and stood tall. Today was the day. The ceremony. The hall filled quickly. Aunties in glittering lace, uncles in freshly ironed agbadas, children running around with balloons. The air carried the rich smell of jollof rice, chicken, spices, and excitement. Drummers beat the talking drum with energy, sending rhythms through the hall. Daniel walked in with confidence, but his hands were slightly cold. He greeted elders, hugged cousins, and nodded at familiar faces. Everyone praised him. "Correct, man? Husband material. Your wife I know." Lila entered shortly after, supported by her mother. The hall erupted in gasps and cheers. She looked radiant, glowing with beauty and purity. The ceremony began smoothly. Prayers, blessings, laughter, dancing, everything felt perfect. Until it was time for Daniel to lift the veil. The moment that changed everything. Daniel held the veil gently. For a moment he hesitated, staring at Lila's face behind the thin fabric. His hand trembled slightly. Nobody noticed. He lifted the veil slowly. The hall went silent. Lila smiled nervously, her eyes shining. But Daniel's eyes caught something else, something small but sharp enough to cut through the fragile peace of the moment. Lila's eyes were red. Not from crying, not from emotion, but from exhaustion. Her lips trembled unfamiliarly. Her breathing was uneven. Daniel's heart dropped. Flashbacks hit him. The arguments, the misunderstandings, her emotional outburst the night before, the half-finished conversations they never resolved. And in that instant, he misinterpreted everything. His fear spoke louder than his love. His insecurity shouted over his reasoning. His doubts drowned out the joy of the day. He thought she had been crying all night because she was unsure about the marriage. He thought she didn't want him anymore. He thought she had second thoughts. He thought she wanted to leave. A foolish thought, a dangerous thought. But thoughts become actions in a heartbeat. Daniel leaned closer and whispered, just for her to hear. Lila, are you sure you want this? Lila blinked in confusion. Daniel, what do you mean? Her voice shook, and in Daniel's already troubled mind, it sounded like fear, like regret, like she didn't want him. Guests held their breath. The drummer stopped tapping. Daniel's chest tightened, his vision blurred with emotion he didn't understand, and before his mind could correct his body, his palms swung. A painful silence followed. Lila's head jerked slightly. Her veil fluttered. Tears gathered instantly in her eyes. Gasps scattered around the hall. Someone shouted, Jesus! Another person screamed, Daniel, what is this? Anita rushed forward but was held back by elders. Daniel froze, his hands still suspended in the air, his face pale with shock as if he himself didn't believe what he'd done. Lila touched her cheek slowly, staring at him with disbelief, hurt and heartbreak stronger than the slap itself. Before anyone could move, Daniel found his voice, broken, trembling. Wait! Everybody wait! Nobody spoke. The hall hung between anger and confusion. Daniel lowered his hand, his fingers shaking uncontrollably. I thought. His voice cracked. But he couldn't complete the sentence, because even he didn't fully understand the emotions that pushed him. The elders demanded an explanation. Lila's family bristled with anger. Her mother's eyes were fiery, ready to strike back. Daniel looked at Lila, guilt swallowing him whole. But Lila looked away, tears falling. Her silence hurt more than anything she could have said. The wedding was no longer a celebration. It was a storm that neither Daniel nor Lila was ready for. A storm that would force the truth to come out, whether they wanted it or not. The hall was still buzzing with confusion from the slap, but outside, the compound had gone strangely quiet. Lila sat on a wooden bench under the mango tree, her hands trembling as she wiped her tears. Daniel stood a few steps away, pacing, gripping his head like he was fighting an invisible war. He hadn't said anything since he dragged her out of the hall. He wanted to speak, but every time he opened his mouth, the words refused to come. Lila finally broke the silence. Why would you accuse me like that, Daniel? How could you? Daniel turned sharply. Because I know what I heard, Lila. I know what I saw. But I don't even understand what you're talking about. Her voice cracked again. Before he could respond, footsteps approached. Slow, heavy, familiar. Daniel stiffened. Lila looked up and gasped softly as a man stepped into the open, tall, with the same eyes Daniel had. His clothes were dusty, as though he had been walking for hours. It was Chike, Daniel's older brother, the brother who disappeared 3 years ago, the brother everyone thought was dead. Lila's eyes widened in shock. You're alive. Chike didn't smile. His gaze went straight to Daniel. We need to talk. Now. Daniel clenched his jaw. Not today, Chike. It has to be today, Chike insisted, stepping closer. Before you destroy your marriage completely. Lila's breath caught. Please. Tell me what's going on, both of you. Chike looked at her with something like guilt, then sighed deeply. Daniel thinks you had something to do with my disappearance. Lila jerked back as though she had been slapped too. What? Why would he think that? Daniel finally faced fully. Because the day before Chike disappeared, he told me he had found something big. He said he needed to warn me about you. Lila stared at Daniel, utterly confused. Warn you? About what? Daniel's voice lowered, filled with pain and suspicion. He said you were not who you claimed to be. Lila's heart thumped against her ribs. I have never met your brother before. Why would he? You have, Daniel cut in sharply. Maybe not the way you think, but you have. Chike raised a hand. Daniel, stop. Let me explain it myself. Daniel took a step back, breathing hard. His eyes showed conflict, anger battling uncertainty. Chike sat down on the bench beside Lila, but kept a respectful distance. 3 years ago, he began, I was working security for a private investigation firm in Lagos. My job was simple. Follow people, gather evidence for cases. Most of the cases were cheating partners or business fraud. Daniel folded his arms tightly. Chike continued. One day we were hired to look into a man running a romance scam. A sweet talker, someone who made women fall in love online so he could collect money from them. Lila's brows pulled together. What does that have to do with me? Chike looked at her carefully. You were one of the people we were investigating, or so we thought. Lila shook her head in disbelief. Chike explained. Your picture was used by the scammers, Lila. Someone stole your identity, used your face, your name, your details, everything, to swindle people. Lila's mouth fell open. I didn't know. That's why I wanted to talk to Daniel, Chike said. I had traced the scammer to someone in this region, and I came home to warn him not to get involved with anyone he didn't truly know. I didn't know he was already dating you. Daniel swallowed hard. Lila stared into space, stunned. Chike continued. But the night I came to speak with Daniel, someone attacked me. I barely survived. When I realized someone wanted me dead, I went into hiding. I couldn't contact anyone. Daniel stepped forward, voice tight. Why didn't you send proof? Why not call me? Why let me believe she? Because I didn't know if Lila herself was innocent, Chike said honestly. I needed to be sure. Lila finally found her voice again. Daniel, you thought I was the scammer? Daniel looked at her, shame flickering in his eyes. I didn't know what to think. All I knew was that on our wedding day, when I lifted your veil, I heard someone whisper behind me. He swallowed hard. They said, she's the one. Lila felt the world tilt. Daniel continued quietly. That's why I reacted. I thought the truth had finally come out. Chike sighed. Daniel, she may not be responsible. Someone else is behind all this, and they are very close. Lila hugged herself tightly, fear creeping in. Who is behind it? She whispered. Chike and Daniel exchanged a heavy look. Chike answered first. I don't know exactly who yet. Daniel added in a low voice, but I know where to start. Lila's heart pounded, because the person Daniel suspected was someone everyone trusted, someone who had been smiling at their wedding just hours earlier. The truth was only beginning to unravel. Silence settled around the three of them like a heavy cloud. The distant sound of wedding music drifted weakly from the hall, but the celebration spirit had died. Every drumbeat now sounded like a warning. Lila's voice trembled. Daniel, who do you suspect? Daniel didn't answer immediately. Instead, he looked toward the hall, toward the people still waiting for them to return as a happy couple. His chest rose and fell slowly, the weight of years pressing down on him. Chike placed a hand on his brother's shoulder. Daniel, it's time, tell her. Daniel exhaled and finally spoke. The person I suspect is someone close to both of us. Someone who had access to Lila's photos, her information, someone who had a reason to hide things from us. Lila blinked, confused. Who? Daniel turned to face her fully. Your cousin, Ada. Lila froze, her breath catching in her throat. Ada? Daniel, that's impossible. Ada is like a sister to me. Chike shook his head. Exactly. Too close. That gives her access and opportunity. When identity theft is involved, it's almost always someone inside the circle. Lila felt the words slicing through her, leaving her cold. Ada would never do something like this. Daniel stepped closer. Then answer me this. Who had your old phone when it got stolen? Who knew your online passwords back then? Who helped you set up your social accounts? After Lila swallowed hard. Ada, but that was years ago. Daniel, she would never. Just then, footsteps approached hurriedly from behind them. It was Ada. Her makeup was slightly smudged, her expression panicked. Lila, Daniel, everyone is worried. What are you doing out here? Daniel and Chike both turned to her, their eyes sharp and unreadable. Ada hesitated when she saw the tension in the air. What's wrong? Why are you all looking at me like that? Lila stood slowly. Ada, Daniel thinks you're the one behind everything. Ada's eyes widened, then she laughed nervously. Me? Lila? What kind of joke is this? Daniel didn't blink. It's not a joke. Chike told us what happened 3 years ago. Someone used Lila's identity for a romance scam. Someone close to her. Someone who knew things only a family member would know. Ada's smile faded instantly. Lila stared at her cousin, searching her face for anger, shock, something. Anything. Ada, she whispered, tell me it's not true. Ada opened her mouth, but before she could speak, Chike moved forward, his voice firm. I saw the scammer once, just once, the night I was attacked. I didn't see their face fully, but I saw something. Ada's hand slowly curled into fists. What did you see? Chike's gaze locked onto her, a birthmark on the wrist. Ada's breath hitched. Lila turned slowly toward her cousin's hands. Ada, show your wrist. Ada took a step back. Lila, stop. You're scaring me. Ada, Daniel repeated, show your wrist. Ada's eyes darted between them, Lila crying, Daniel glaring, Chike watching every move. She took another step back. Why do you all think it's me? She whispered. After everything I've done for you? Lila's voice cracked. Because you won't show your wrist. Ada's breathing grew fast and shallow. In one sharp movement, Daniel reached forward, grabbing her hand. Ada screamed and struggled, but Chike helped hold her steady. Daniel pulled up her sleeve, and there it was, a small dark birthmark on her wrist. Lila staggered back in disbelief. Ada, why? Ada's entire body trembled, her eyes filling with tears, but not the tears of innocence. Chike's voice cut through the tension. Tell the truth, now. Ada's lips quivered. You don't understand. I didn't mean for everything to go this far. Daniel stepped closer. Then what did you mean to do? Ada's voice came out in a broken rush. I only wanted Lila to need me, to depend on me. She had everything, beauty, opportunities. People loved her for no reason. And then she met you, Daniel. You were supposed to notice me, not her. Daniel's eyes darkened. So you used her identity to scam people? Ada nodded slowly, tears streaming. Yes, but the money wasn't the point. I wanted to ruin her image slowly. I wanted people to doubt her. I wanted her to lose things so she would run to me for help. Lila pressed a hand to her chest, devastated. Ada, you're my family. I trusted you. Ada sobbed harder. And that's why it worked. Chike stepped forward. That night I came home, you recognized me. You followed me. You attacked me. Ada shook violently, guilt consuming her. I didn't mean to hurt anyone. I was scared. I thought you would expose me before I could fix things. Daniel's hands clenched into fists, his voice low and furious. You almost died. You hid for years, all because she wanted to destroy Lila. Lila felt fresh tears rising. Ada, why didn't you just tell me you were struggling? Why didn't you talk to me? Ada looked down, her voice trembling like a fragile thread about to break. Because talking to you always made me feel smaller. You were always brighter than me, always more. Chike looked at Daniel. We can't let her go. She has to face the consequences. Ada collapsed to her knees in the dirt, crying uncontrollably. Please, please forgive me. I didn't mean for it to ruin your wedding. Daniel stepped back, disgusted. But Lila walked toward her slowly, her heart tearing in two. Before anyone could move, Ada reached for Lila's hand and whispered, There's something else, something you don't know yet. Daniel and Chike stiffened instantly. Lila froze. What do you mean? Ada lifted her tear-filled eyes, and the next word she said shattered everything they thought they knew. Lila, the scam wasn't my idea. Someone else planned it. Someone we all know. The world seemed to stop moving. Even the leaves hanging from the mango tree fell still as Ada's trembling words echoed in the air. Someone else planned it. Someone they all knew. Daniel's jaw clenched. Who are you talking about? Ada wiped her tears with the back of her shaking hand. I can't say it. Chike took one step closer. You don't have the luxury to hide the truth anymore. Speak. Ada squeezed her eyes shut, as if saying the name would summon a demon. Finally, she whispered, It was Pastor Obinna. Lila felt her stomach twist painfully. Pastor Obinna, the same man who counseled us, who blessed our union today. Ada nodded weakly. Daniel's eyes flashed with disbelief and anger. You're lying. He's a respected man, a spiritual father to half the village. Ada let out a broken laugh. You think that makes him innocent? Chike stepped forward, voice razor sharp. How did he get involved? Ada trembled as she spoke, her voice weak. 3 years ago, when Lila got her promotion and moved to town, Pastor Obinna told me she would forget her family, that she would abandon us, that she would become too proud. Lila gasped. I never abandoned you. Daniel looked between them, trying to piece everything together. Ada continued. He told me that Lila's brightness was a threat, that she didn't realize the spiritual battle surrounding her. He said the only way to protect her was to humble her. Chike's face hardened. And humble her by destroying her identity? By using her face for scams? Ada nodded slowly. He said if people lost trust in her, she would come running back to family and God. I believed him. He introduced me to some boys who knew computer work. They set up everything, accounts, fake profiles, email lines, using Lila's details. Daniel ran a hand across his face, sickened. And you did all of this because a pastor told you Lila needed to be humbled? Ada sobbed. I was young, desperate for guidance, and he promised me things. Lila's eyes widened. Promised you what? Ada hesitated, shame burning across her face. He promised that Daniel would marry me instead. Silence fell like a hammer. Daniel flinched. What? Ada broke down completely. He said he saw a vision that you were meant for me, not Lila, that she was standing in the way of my destiny. He said if her reputation crumbled, you would see her true colors and choose me. Lila put a hand over her mouth, horrified. Chike muttered, "Manipulation, spiritual blackmail, lies. This man is dangerous." But Ada wasn't done. The night I attacked Chike, Pastor Obina told me he knew Chike was following me. He said if Chike exposed everything, all the spiritual work he was doing would be wasted. He told me to stop him at any cost. Daniel stared at her in disbelief. "You almost killed my brother because a pastor told you to?" Ada sobbed. "I thought it was divine instruction. I thought I was protecting a calling." Lila felt her legs give out and she sank to the bench. "How could Pastor Obina do this to us? Why?" Chike answered grimly. "Because men like him crave control, and bright women like you, Lila, threaten the lies they build." Ada's voice dropped even lower. "And there's more." Daniel's patience snapped. "Ada, enough riddles. Say it." Ada looked at Lila, guilt swallowing her whole. "Pastor Obina told me something else about you, something he wanted to use to break Daniel completely." Lila frowned. "What did he tell you?" Ada whispered. "He said Daniel should never marry you because you were carrying a secret from your past." Lila's breath caught. "My past? What secret?" Ada hesitated, tears streaming harder. He lied to me. He said you once dated a married man, and that the man died, and people accused you of causing his death. He said Daniel would leave you if he knew." Daniel's eyes widened in shock. Lila stared at Ada, her voice trembling. "Ada, that is a lie, a terrible lie." Ada nodded miserably. "I know that now. I only realized it after I already helped him. He used me. He used all of us." Daniel turned away, fist trembling, anger boiling beneath his calm exterior. Chike looked between them. "We need to expose him today, before he ruins more lives." Ada shook her head desperately. "You don't understand. He's powerful. People worship him. If you confront him without evidence, he will twist everything. He always does." Daniel lifted his head slowly, a cold determination in his eyes. "Then we'll get the evidence." Ada looked terrified. "How?" Daniel pointed toward the church office, where Pastor Obina had changed earlier after officiating the wedding. "He keeps everything in that office. Voice notes, records, private files. He monitors people. If he planned this, he left traces." Lila wiped her tears. "So what do we do?" Chike answered calmly. "We go right now." Daniel nodded. "We end this today." Ada hesitated. "If he catches us, he will deny everything. He might even accuse us of attacking him." Daniel looked at her with a steady, unshaken expression. "Then don't worry about that part." Lila blinked. "Why?" Daniel stepped forward, the moonlight catching the tired rage on his face. "Because I'm not going in there to beg or to argue." His voice grew harder. "I'm going in there to confront him and make him confess." Chike nodded in agreement. Lila stood, heart pounding. Ada trembled behind them. Together. The betrayed bride, the wounded groom, the brother who returned from the shadows, and the cousin who finally confessed, they walked toward the church hall, toward the man who had manipulated an entire family, toward the truth that waited behind his door, toward the final confrontation. Everything that began with a slap was about to end with revelation. The path to the church office felt longer than usual. Every step echoed like a heartbeat, steady, tense, unforgiving. Lila walked beside Daniel, her fingers brushing his but not holding. They were both shaken, but something new connected them now. Truth. Behind them, Ada followed slowly, her face pale with guilt. Chike walked ahead, scanning the surroundings with the eyes of someone who had once been hunted. When they reached the church building, the compound was mostly empty. The remaining guests were inside the hall, whispering about the slap, unaware that a storm was gathering outside. Daniel pushed the church office door slightly, and it creaked open. It wasn't locked. Chike raised a brow. "He's inside." They stepped in quietly. The room was dim, lit only by a single table lamp. Papers were scattered everywhere, files, envelopes, a laptop still logged into an email account. And standing beside the desk, calmly sipping a cup of tea as if he had been expecting them, was Pastor Obina. He didn't look surprised. He didn't look confused. He didn't even look threatened. He smiled. "Daniel, Lila, Ada, and the prodigal brother returns. What a pleasant reunion." Daniel's fists tightened. "Stop pretending. We know everything." The pastor placed his cup gently on the desk and folded his arms. "Do you?" Ada stepped forward timidly. "I told them everything you made me do." Pastor Obina's smile didn't falter. "My dear child, I didn't make you do anything. I guided you. You chose your path." Ada shook her head, tears forming again. "You manipulated me. The pastor chuckled softly. Manipulation? No. I simply opened your eyes to your destiny. You were the one jealous of Lila. You were the one who believed Daniel deserved better. I just encouraged your spirit. Daniel stepped forward sharply. You used her. You used all of us. Pastor Obina finally turned his attention to Daniel fully. And look at how better you are for it, my son. Trials strengthen men. Lila snapped. You ruined our wedding. He shrugged lightly. Sometimes foundations must be broken before a stronger structure can rise. Chike pointed at the laptop. There's evidence here. All your emails, your communications, everything. Pastor Obina let out a calm sigh. Ah, evidence. Such a fragile thing. You think people will believe you over me? Over their pastor? Their spiritual leader? He stepped closer, the lamp illuminating his cold, calculating eyes. All I have to do is say one word. They attacked me, and the entire village will defend me before you even breathe. Ada's knees weakened. Please, don't do this. Pastor Obina turned to her with mock pity. My dear Ada, you were so easy to shape. A little insecurity, a little praise, that's all it took. Daniel could no longer hold back. He took a step forward. What do you gain from this? Destroying Lila? Driving wedges between us? Almost getting my brother killed? A dark smile crept onto Pastor Obina's face. You think too small, Daniel. This isn't about you or your bride. It's about power, influence, and some people, he flicked a finger toward Lila, shine too brightly for their own good. Lila's voice was cold and steady. You target women. You prey on their insecurities. You build your authority by breaking their confidence. Pastor Obina didn't respond, but the glint in his eyes was answer enough. Chike suddenly stepped forward. It's over. The pastor raised a brow. Oh, and what will you do? Fight me? Beat me? That will only prove my innocence in the eyes of the people. Daniel took a deep breath. No, we won't fight you. He reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. A red blinking light showed on the screen. Pastor Obina's expression finally shifted. You've been recording. Daniel nodded. Everything. Every word you just said. Chike crossed his arms. That's more than enough evidence. Ada gasped softly, relief washing over her. The pastor's calm charm cracked for the first time. You fools? You think this will save you? You think the people will believe a lying girl, a jealous cousin, a disgraced bride, a runaway brother? Daniel cut him off sharply. They will believe the truth. Pastor Obina's voice turned sharp, venomous. You don't know the kind of man you are challenging. Daniel stepped closer, face inches from his. And you don't know the kind of man I've become. Lila walked forward then, straightening her gown, lifting her chin. She looked the pastor in the eye with strength that made even him step back slightly. My life is no longer under your shadow, and neither is Ada's or anyone else's. Chike opened the door. We're taking this to the elders, tonight. Pastor Obina lunged forward suddenly, but Daniel grabbed his arm, twisting it behind his back with unexpected force. Try it, Daniel whispered. I dare you. The pastor froze. Daniel released him and stepped away. Lila, Ada, and Chike walked out first. Daniel lingered for a moment, staring at the man who had tried to break his entire world. Your days of controlling people are over, Daniel said quietly. Pastor Obina's breathing shook with rage. You'll regret this. Daniel shook his head. No, the only one who should regret anything is you. He turned and walked out, closing the door behind him. Outside, the air was cool. The moonlight bathed the compound in silver. Lila reached for Daniel's hand. This time, he held her tightly. Chike walked beside them, strong and steady. Ada followed, broken but finally free. Together they headed toward the village square, toward justice, toward healing. The wedding day that began with a slap was ending with clarity. The lies were exposed, the truth was out, and Daniel and Lila were finally stepping into a new beginning, this time with eyes wide open. The end.